Let's talk about a man who, on paper, had no real power. He held no office, had no fancy degree, commanded no army, and yet he had some of the most powerful people on the entire planet in the palm of his hand. His name, of course, was Jeffrey Epstein.
So, right off the bat, we have to ask the big question, the one that still hangs over this entire story. How did he do it? What was the actual source of his unbelievable and frankly, completely unexplained influence over the global elite?
And this is where it gets really strange. Look at the contrast here. On the one hand, his official status, a former math teacher, a financier. But on the other hand, the reality? He had US presidents on speed dial, he was manipulating British royalty, and he knew the deepest, darkest secrets of the world's billionaires. It's this huge gap between who he appeared to be and what he could actually do. That's where this whole twisted story really begins.
You know, to really understand the life of this man, you kind of have to start at the end. An end so dramatic, so suspicious, that it just made the mystery of who he was and what he knew that much deeper.
So picture this. August 10th, 2019. Epstein is found dead in one of the most secure federal jails in America. The official story is suicide, but, the details just don't line up. The CCTV cameras pointed at his cell? Oh, they were supposedly broken. The two guards who were supposed to be checking on him, they fell asleep. The autopsy found broken bones in his neck, which some experts say are more consistent with being strangled than with hanging. And just weeks before, he'd already been attacked in that same cell. The timing was just, let's say it was very convenient for a lot of powerful people. So how did he even get into a position where his death would be so convenient? To get that, we have to peel back the layers. We have to go all the way back to the beginning to see how he built this empire of influence from literally nothing.
Epstein's story doesn't start with a silver spoon. He was born in 1953 to a regular middle-class family in New York. He didn't have money, he didn't have connections, but what he did have was this almost supernatural ability to watch people, to see what made them tick.
And check this out. In 1974, he somehow gets a job teaching at the super elite Dalton School in New York, a place for the kids of the rich and powerful, even though he didn't have a college degree. But he wasn't there for the students. No, he was studying their parents, learning their ambitions, their fears, and, most importantly, all of their weaknesses. And this is where he developed his core philosophy, the idea that would make him so dangerous. He realized early on that real power, the kind that lasts, isn't about money. The real currency, the ultimate leverage, is knowing the things that people would do anything to keep hidden.
So he has this dark philosophy, right? Well, this wasn't just some abstract idea. He took this theory and built a sophisticated, terrifying, real-world system of control around it, a full-blown blackmail empire.
And he had all the tools to make it happen. A private Boeing 727, which got the infamous nickname the Lolita Express, to fly his guests in discreetly. Not one, but two private islands totally cut off from the world. No police, no public access, basically his own private kingdoms. And reportedly, every single room, every hallway, every building was wired with hidden cameras. And at the center of it all was a horrifying trafficking network that targeted and lured underage girls.
So who were the guests on this island fortress? Well, flight logs and sworn testimony name some of the most famous people in the world. The source material alleges that powerful men, including a former U.S. President, Bill Clinton, and the UK's Prince Andrew, were flown in, where they allegedly took part in illegal activities that were, of course, being meticulously recorded.
Okay, this all raises a massive question. An operation this big, with this much risk, targeting people this powerful, was Epstein really the mastermind, acting all on his own? Or was he just the frontman for a much bigger, much darker game? He was definitely not alone. His number one partner in crime was Ghislaine Maxwell. Think of it like this. Epstein was the operator. He ran the island, the jet, the whole setup. But Maxwell, she was the recruiter. She used her high society status to find and trap vulnerable young women, promising them things like modeling careers, only to deliver them straight into Epstein's web.
But to understand Ghislaine, you really have to look at her father, Robert Maxwell. He was this larger-than-life media tycoon who, had a very shadowy side. The source we're examining today alleges he was also a high-level agent for Mossad, Israel's powerful intelligence agency. And suddenly, that connection adds a whole new, startling dimension to this entire story.
So if you put those pieces together, the source lays out this chilling theory that this was never just about one man's sick appetites, it was an intelligence operation. Step 1, Epstein and Maxwell entrap powerful people. Step 2, everything gets recorded. Step 3, that compromising material, the blackmail, is allegedly funneled to intelligence agencies like Mossad and Britain's MI6. And the final step? Those agencies then use that blackmail to control world leaders, shaping global events from behind the curtain.
For years, this whole setup seemed untouchable, totally bulletproof, protected by the very powerful people it was designed to entrap. But eventually, the cracks started to show, and this giant fortress of secrets began to crumble.
The first big crack appeared way back in 2006. Epstein was arrested after more than 40 underage girls came forward with allegations. Everyone expected him to get a life sentence, but instead he got a deal that was just shocking. A measly 13 months. And it wasn't even hard time. He was in a private wing of a county jail and had work release, meaning he could leave the jail for 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. Unbelievable.
So you have to be asking, how in the world did he swing a deal like that? Well, the source points to something called a non-prosecution agreement, or NPA. It's a legal tool that basically shut down a much bigger federal investigation. And the alleged goal was simple: contain the scandal and keep that list of powerful names from ever becoming public.
But the world was changing. In 2017, the #MeToo movement exploded, and it created this huge cultural shift. Powerful men who had been protected for decades were finally being held accountable. That new climate, pushed along by tireless journalists, gave new accusers the courage to speak out. And finally, on July 6, 2019, his protections ran out. Epstein was arrested again. And that brings us full circle, right back to where we started. Epstein is now sitting in a jail cell. He's no longer untouchable. The man who held the world's most dangerous secrets was finally cornered and was about to talk.
Yeah, everything had changed. He was facing life in prison for real this time, with no sweet deal on the table. And the global elite, all the names in his files, they knew he was cornered. He had absolutely nothing left to lose, and his testimony could have brought down governments.
Which brings us back to that one ultimate question about what happened that night in his jail cell. When you think about the stakes, when you think about who he could have exposed, was his death an act of despair, or was it an act of silencing?
And maybe the most important thing to remember is this: Jeffrey Epstein, the man, is gone. But the system of power, of blackmail, of secret influence that he perfected, that system is almost certainly still in place. It really makes you wonder who is still being protected by the secrets that died with him.
And so we're left with one final, very chilling thought. Those files, those recordings, they exist somewhere. The names are known by someone. But with the main player now permanently silenced, will the full, unvarnished truth of the Epstein network ever really see the light of day?